Good afternoon, magandang hapon, and welcome to today's episode of My PI Dream. Today, we're gonna do something that we usually don't do around here. We might be talking about stuff that might be a little bit controversial. As you know, we have prided ourselves on My PI Dream to not talk about controversial subjects, and we try to stay very conservative, but we try to talk about things that are effectively helpful items, DIY items, travel, to share experiences with you. But today, after watching the news that we've been watching about the COVID-19 coronavirus situation, we're starting to get a little bit frustrated of what we're seeing on the news. Again, I'm still going to try to be politically correct, even though this is not a political, and I have to reemphasize, this is not a political statement that we're doing right here. It's mainly about our opinion on how governments are handling this coronavirus situation. Well, I hope you stick around for the rest of the episode. Don't tune us out yet, because we have some really good information for today. So without further delay, let's get today's video underway. Now we're sitting here on the back porch because it's comfortable and it's quiet. You don't hear any traffic inside town. It's almost like a ghost town here because of the enforcement of all of the quarantine procedures that are both national directed by the President Duterte here, as well as the local municipalities like we have here in Lipa under the leadership of Mayor Africa. So what we are here to talk about today is, after watching news and pulling information, doing research on the internet, and collecting data points, what our analysis is of the direction of different countries that are effectively trying to get rid of this nasty bug. Specifically, the differences between the U.S. and the Philippines. That's what we're going to focus on today. Well, anyway, we put together a graph. And I think we stuck it in a PowerPoint presentation, but we're not going to do a death by PowerPoint today because it's a few PowerPoint slides, and what we want to do is we just want to show you some specific information as quick as possible. So anyway, let's go ahead and go to it, and we want to do a comparison because this all leads to, for us, we have a trip scheduled in about 2 weeks. We are supposed to go to the U.S., but we have to make some big decisions. Do we feel safer in the Philippines or in the U.S. at this point in time? Let's go ahead and move forward. Let's look at our first slide. Anyway, the first slide is a comparison. It's a comparison between coronavirus cases in the U.S. and the Philippines. So let's take a look, and we're going to look at all the data points on here as well. United States has 331, a little bit over 331 million people, whereas the Philippines has a little over 109 million people, about a third of what we have inside the U.S. Now, let's look at the infection rate. The coronavirus cases that are documented in the U.S. right now is, well, when I did this earlier this morning, when I pulled this, it was 14,299. We just did a quick to be able to get the reference. It's actually about 100 and something cases just within the last couple hours, maybe a couple hundred cases above to where we are right here. But for all intents and purposes, we're going to give you our data points that we got all at the same time. 14,299 as opposed to the coronavirus cases that are in the Philippines that are documented 217 cases. And you can find these on our references down at the bottom, Worldometers, or you can look at them on Wikipedia. The Center for Disease Control, the CDCs, they're all reporting basically the same numbers here. So before we go on to the other numbers, let's look at the numbers that are right here. The coronavirus cases that we are showing in each one of the two countries. Now, the Philippines has only 1/3 of the amount of people inside the United States, but if you multiplied times that 2/3 or 3 times the amount for the coronaviruses in the Philippines, we would be around 650 cases right now. Where the coronavirus, if you wanted to compare it, it's a ratio of the amount of people in the country. You would be around 600, 650. But in the U.S. we have 14,299. What's the difference there? We'll talk about that in a little bit as well. Deaths, the amount of deaths in the United States in relationship to the coronavirus is 218, as opposed to the amount of documented cases in the Philippines, 17. Now again, if you use those same ratio numbers, if you multiplied that by about 3, you would have less than 60, maybe about 55 cases as opposed to the deaths inside the U.S. Now, probably the reason for that, and I'm going to make an analysis, is because we have such a low amount of active cases inside the Philippines at this point. But what I want to emphasize is the next point which shows the amount of people who have recovered from the coronavirus. In the Philippines, you have 8, and in the United States, 121 as of earlier this morning, the numbers that are being reported. Now, if you multiplied 8 times 3, which would put us at 24, it is proportioned to the rest of the numbers that you have in here. But I expect that you are going to see much higher numbers of recovery in the United States, mainly because we have so many medical facilities in the United States. We have so much resources available to us. IC units that have respirators, all the high technology. I think the ratio for recovery is much more.
Still, this compared to 1 to 1, it's very low.
Very low.
It's
very low. Right, and what Ness points out is the amount recovered compared to the amount of active cases that are documented inside. It's still very low. So maybe.
Well, this Philippines has a higher recovery rate.
Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. The next slide. And we already said we have 217 documented cases inside the Philippines. What I really wanted you to do is kind of look over to the right, and this is as of this morning, March 20th, on Wikipedia, and they keep this thing updated on a day-to-day basis. I want you to look at the map to the side. This is the only reason I put this slide on. If you look at the map of the United States and what every one of the media is reporting, the United States has 50 states, and they have 50 states worth of infection. There is not one state in the U.S. that is free of the coronavirus. But if you look at the map here for the Philippines, if you were to put it into perspective and you were to break down the Philippines as states, even though we have provinces and we have barangays, if you were to put it down, if you were to break it out proportionally, we don't have, every province doesn't have it, does not have the virus. And there are actually areas that are virus-free inside the Philippines.
Only a few sections of the Philippines have the virus. Okay. So unlike the U.S., which has all states have now.
And we're going to talk a little bit more about that and just a little bit about measures that are put in place and why we think some of the measures inside the Philippines as well as other Asian countries have been so effective. So let's look at several data points for total corona cases. Let's look at, instead of on the numbers, let's look at it on a graph, and that's what we're looking at right here. Let's look at this graph right here. The graph shows that the total corona cases in the U.S., and this is actually a couple of days old. This is between the 17th and the 18th these numbers came, because we already know that on the first slide, if we go back up to the first slide shows we have 14,299. Here it shows, I think it shows just under 10,000. Well, that's how much it's grown between just in the last few days. But the point on this slide is I want you to look at the spike, the extreme vertical spike of
there is an upward trend
of the coronavirus cases inside. And I know you've seen this on all the media channels. Nobody's in denial of this chart right here.
It's going up.
Let's compare the U.S. to China. Now, China, they started going in that same spiral up, but they put a lot of measures into place, and we're going to talk about it. But you can see, basically, it stopped the spread of corona cases. And these are all cases, not new and active cases, but these are all cases.
The curve has flattened.
It has flattened to almost zero. Let's look at South Korea, who is in the top 5 of the countries that were infected. Look at their spiral that they have inside here, or
and
their
the curve
chart.
is flattening too.
It was going up, but they put effective measures, and some kind of effective measures, again, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, that have been obviously effective. Let's look at active cases. Instead of all cases, look at active cases. All active cases in the U.S. Spiral. Again, it mirrors the very first one that shows that, because all the cases in there are active cases. Upward. It's the same as active cases. All the cases, active cases, they look almost identical, but it's spiraling vertically straight right here with no sign of relief. Of course, you have to look at the dates. The dates on this one start on February 15th. And we're going to look at the active cases in China, which started 3 weeks earlier when they have their graph, which started January 22nd. They were going similar to this, but not quite as bad as the spiral that we have, the vertical spiral curve that we have in the U.S. And you can see the active cases. Now, remember the first one, we saw it flatten off, and the reason it flattened off is because they're getting no new cases. Look as of about February 18th. Look at the graph. The numbers are going down. The number of new cases are reducing.
Yeah, the curve is going downward now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Let's look at South Korea. Again, this starts at February 15th. This is also using the same data points or the same dates that we have inside the U.S. They started this graph on the 15th, but you can see, putting some type of measure in place, that the numbers are starting to go negative. They are losing their active cases. So what I wanted to do here, I want to do a comparison between Italy, who seems to be out of control, and the United States. Look at the curves. They are almost identical, except the U.S. is in a worse vertical spiral than Italy. But we know Italy is starting to put some measures into action. But I just wanted to look, and these start on the same date, February 15th and February 15th, which shows here, if you look at the data points show
it's the same shape of the curve.
Same shape, but ours is worse.
It's going up, upward.
But the U.S. is worse. The U.S. is worse. We are not proactively doing anything effective up for these dates that we have right here, up until about the 17th of March. Nothing has been done in place. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Now, I have 3 more slides here, and then we're done with the slides. But these 3 slides that we have here are a week old. These are a week old, and when we were watching MSNBC, and they get their source from this Dr. David Ho. He was actually the one who was turned the milestone around for the AIDS, the HIV virus, and totally turned that around. So he's a very credible person. But anyway. What I want you to see is this mirrors. It just basically mirrors a week ago, which the U.S. knew a week ago, that there were effective measures that could have been put into place to be able to effectively do something to negate the effects of the coronavirus. These have been, and these aren't new. This has been happening. This is a week-old chart. Italy and Spain. This was a week ago. The numbers we were getting, we were showing that they were going up. But there was a trend that was happening here at the end of this. You could see the spiral started to change just a little bit. And we knew this a week ago.
The curve, not the spiral.
Well, the spiral is a spiral vertical curve. I don't know what you want to call it. So the daily new confirmed cases, let's look at this from a week ago, which we have the data points from New York and Europe. We are almost mirroring. But you could see in Europe, it's starting to tailor off. It's starting to move into a less of a vertical position, but the U.S., specifically New York City, nothing is being done. Even though they're saying all the data points, nothing is being done a week ago, or not enough. Let's put it like that. Not enough has been done to counter the effects of this virus. So we're done with these. The main thing we wanted to show you are data points. Now, what we want to discuss here is what it's generally agreed upon in the scientific community and the governments, not just the scientific community, but the governments. The only effective measure to isolating and eradicating this horrible disease is to do self-isolation and quarantine. It's so important. And I don't know why there has been so much emphasis in the U.S. and so many people saying, well, it's okay to go, it's going to go away. There's so many things, and you know who these people who are saying these things, that it's going to magically go away. Well, it's not going to magically go away. You have to be effective. You have to put measures into place. And those measures that we talked about in Asia and is starting to take place inside certain portions of Europe, those measures are self-quarantine, not just and you have to have some type of a force or a government that will make sure that's happening. And that's what's happening inside Asia. China, you saw, as radical as it was, and you saw some of the bad pictures of them grabbing people and isolating these people inside facilities, making sure
in the Philippines.
making sure that they are not cross-contaminating. You see the measures that were put in place inside Korea, South Korea, and you see the measures right now that we are telling you on our updates that they are doing here. The enforcement of the national and the local municipalities for putting us into basically home. You're kind of like in a home lockdown is what we're doing, but it's showing effective. But the U.S., even though they knew this, they're waiting so long and just think about all the people who are affected by these things not being put into place, all the senseless deaths that are happening because we are not being proactive. And I'm not going to get into politics. This is sort of into politics, but the thing is that has to be done at a bipartisan level. Everybody has to agree that something's going wrong here, and we all need to put all politics aside, and we need to do things that are right for the people. And we don't think that's been done in the U.S., and that's one of the reasons why that we are talking about, instead of coming back to the U.S. right now, we think it's not the time, because we don't think the U.S. is taking appropriate measures at this point to make us safe for our return flight. Enough said on that. You have our answer on why, whether we want to stay in the Philippines or we want to go back to the U.S. Now, let's go into one more topic. Now, even though that we want to postpone our trip, we want to come back to the U.S. That's our second home or our first home, whatever you want to say. But right now, we have family there, and we want to vacation, and we want to enjoy our home back in the U.S. But the airlines and the agencies, the ticketing agencies, are making it extremely difficult for you to change your travel plans, either to cancel your ticket or to reschedule your ticket or to try to get an open-ended ticket. We've been on the line this morning for 5 hours. We started at 8 o'clock this morning. We've been on trying to contact our ticketing agent, which is Expedia, by the way. We have been trying to contact Delta, which is our airline, by the way.
Asiana Airlines.
And Asiana Airline, which is our connection from...
Calling these airlines.
From the Philippines, too. We didn't want to go into Korea, but they wanted to put us into Korea for our change of flight, our transfer, so to say. Because our original flight was Philippines, Incheon, South Korea, Atlanta, and Charleston. We had like an hour and a half layover in each one of these places right here. Well, we got notified on March 3rd, that the tickets that we booked almost a year ago that we booked, they got changed. And we don't mind change. That's understandable. These things happen. And the changes that they put on there, they basically, I think we had, it was minor change. It wasn't a big deal. Then we got another notification that said they had done another change, and they give you options. They give you an option on 2 options of different types of changes that you can accept, or to cancel your tickets. But there's always a caveat at the end of it. The caveat is, if you change the tickets, you might have to pay certain kind of fees and cancellation fees and everything that you have as a result of canceling your tickets. So the second change that we had. The second change put us, let me tell you what the change that the airline gave us. This is the change. They put us from leaving Manila, arriving in Incheon at about 5 o'clock. It was like 4:57, 5 o'clock p.m. in the afternoon to make our connection flight that left about 10 a.m. the morning. That was already gone. That was their change. They made... And it's obvious that you can't do this. And it even says there's a little here. I'm going to bring it up. There's actually a disclaimer on on the
Giving me
on the itinerary that says with the schedule change you might miss your connecting flight. Please review scheduled itinerary. Well, anyway, it doesn't take a rocket science to see if I arrive. Oh, here it is. I arrive in Incheon at 4:55 on a specific day, and my flight leaves Incheon on that same specific day at 10:45 a.m., which is like what 6-7 hours earlier. That's what that's what Delta sent to us for confirmed, and it says to the side, it says these are confirmed, these are confirmed tickets. Now how can they make a mistake like that? Well, it doesn't matter because we're not flying this flight anyway. But the thing is, you cannot get through to the airlines. You cannot get through to the airlines. You cannot get through to Expedia. All you get, and I should record some of the message you get there, but they're basically saying, unless you're within 72 hours, we're not even going to talk to you. But even if you try contacting, you could pretend that you're within that 72 hours. I'm going to pretend I'm the within 72 hour customer. We waited for somebody to answer. You cannot get anybody to answer on any of them. And the same holds for Asiana, and the same holds for Delta. So you are held at hostage. But if you click on something that says you want to change your tickets, you try to, because they say you can try to do it online. If you try to change it online, they want to charge you $300 penalty per person. But the thing is, they're penalizing us for trying to correct a problem that they made to begin with. All right, I know this is a confusing time. I understand this is a confusing time.
You can't even talk to anybody.
But you need to be able to speak.
Your phone is on hold.
You need to be able to speak to someone.
For a long time.
And this, I'm going to try not to get political, but it's going to be. This is a political statement that I am making here. If you've been watching, and this has to apply to U.S. policy. If you've been watching the news, you see one of the things out of the current administration is they want the airlines are complaining we are losing money. We're losing money right now. And the current administration says they want to bail out. I think they realize this is a backlash, and it's now. I think this morning when we were watching, it was that this might not have been a great move on their part. But the current administration says, as of yesterday, we're going to bail out. Our proposal is we're going to bail out the airline industry. Not give them a loan, a 0% interest loan, but we're just going to give them money for them to be able to recover. Now, let's put this into perspective. I paid for tickets. We paid for tickets. Now the airline, because of a condition that I can't control, I can't even get to the airport because we have no public transportation. Public transportation is shut down here. Yeah. You cannot even get to the airport. So it's out of our hands that we can't get there. So let's get back. Okay, the government wanted to bail out the airlines, right? We bought a ticket. We're not going to be able to fly, if we change those tickets to a later date, we're going to get penalized $600. We're getting penalized from a airline that is potentially going to get a bailout. And where does that bailout money come from? It comes from our tax dollars. That's our tax dollars that we have going inside there. So anyway, that's our opinion. I only have one more thing to say, and that had to do with the way things are being handled, which I don't understand why places like the U.S. are not following along. Remember we said the way they're handling of it is basically forced quarantine. They're doing forced quarantine. We've known this for the past 2 weeks. One of the directives that they had here in the Philippines is one of the proposals that got passed. If you have 2 people in a barangay, which is the smallest area, it's a small little town, which we live in right here. If you have 2 cases that are identified, your barangay is shut down. You are under quarantine. If you have 2 barangays within a province
that have,
or within a city, 2 barangays within a city that have active cases, and I think is it 2 active cases in each one? 2 active cases, I believe.
No, if there are 2 cases from different barangay, 2 cases from a different barangay,
you
then it
shut
could be
down
city.
the city. The city is shut down. Then,
If
if
there
you
are
have
two
two cases within 2 cities,
Two cities.
in a province, they
shut
shut the
down the
province down.
province.
They shut down, and they did. It's been effective, and it was just happening so fast. They
And
ended up
now-
shutting the entire island
Now
down.
the President Duterte just made Luzon quarantined.
But they
From
they are making command decisions with the people in mind. They know they have to do this, even though it's not popular. But the difference between here and I'm going to say in the U.S., the people understand the need for. They are scared here. They are scared of this virus. They know the seriousness of this virus, and they are following as much as they possibly can. They are following all these stringent and strict rules and regulations. That's what we're doing. Enough for today. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's video. We will continue to do updates as we hear more information, and there are some that have to do with the airline schedules and stuff like that, but we'll get on another episode of that. Again, if you enjoyed today's video, please give us a thumbs up.
Be safe.
Please share, and that's important. Please share, and if you have not subscribed and you want to continue getting updates like this, please click on the little My PM heart. In the bottom right hand side of your screen, you'll be subscribed and notified of the next time we upload a new video.
Stay home.
So until such time, stay home, practice good hygiene, remember the washing of hands, all the things that you are seeing that are really effective. And again, be safe. Ingat. Take care. If you enjoyed today's episode and you would like to see more just like these, just click on one of the helpful links over to your right and you might be able to pick up on some good information on DIY projects, how to, or if you are interested in moving to the Philippines and building, you'll find answers there as well.